Leaf with the Legends podcast highlights people doing exceptional work in the areas of sports, entertainment, business, and entrepreneurship. Make sure to like this video, leave comments down below, and subscribe to the channel. As always, be legendary or be lost. Yo, we are back. Another episode of Leaf with the Legends podcast. I have a very, very special guest, my first female guest. We got a racing legend. You see the backdrop, a sneaker legend. And now, sports media legend. We got my homegirl, Simran Kaleka. Welcome to the pod.
Thank you for having me, Leaf. This is huge. I love what you're doing.
Oh man, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. When I dropped the kind of the teaser or whatever, and you commented, under it, I was like, yeah, Sim would be a great guest because you got such a great story to tell, which we're gonna get into. Um, but just like your story and just your exuberance and how passionate you are about what you're involved in. So let's take it all the way back to the beginning. Let's talk about your upbringing, growing up in Racine. Like let's dive into that.
Well, raised in Racine. My family stems from Racine, Milwaukee to Chicago. I'm a first generation child of immigrants. My parents and family is from Punjab, which is northern India. I have a family of majority boys on both sides. So I grew up with sports, sneakers, wrestling, just tussling with them. So that was my upbringing. So have been basically inbred in it from jump. And I think being in the Midwest, basketball has been a pivotal part of my story. So yeah, I mean, that's really what it is. I've basically existed between two worlds of like my culture and obviously like being born and raised here in the States and what that means and just being able to maintain both aspects of me and staying true to myself and my parents' sacrifices and everything that they built out, but as well as adapting to what I was born and raised in and just trying to, make the world a better place day by day. That's it.
Absolutely, and you are. We gonna get into that. So you get to Racine. What high school did you go to?
St. Cat's. St.
Okay,
Cat's. Mhm.
St. Cat. So you was a baller down there, right?
Yep. I played up until sophomore year. I stopped growing at 5'5", but I played tennis all the way till senior year because I played tennis and basketball my whole life.
Okay.
So yeah, St. Cat's is a big basketball school. So
Facts.
clearly everywhere I went, it followed me.
No, I love it. I love it. I love it. So in high school, like or after high school, like what were your plans?
Well, I had no choice. College. Growing up in like my family, my culture, college is expected. So I didn't get a high school graduation party because my parents expected me to go to college.
Mm.
I didn't get a college graduation party because I was expected to graduate from college. Like it was just always these expectations put on me. So the plan was to go to college, and the options were giving like doctor, lawyer, engineer. My older brother's a doctor. So I did pre-law at Marquette, ended up staying in the hometown. Majority of my family went to Marquette, so it was a no-brainer for my parents. But I got accepted into like Georgetown, Syracuse, like other places. But because I went to St. Cat's, it gave basically a relationship for grants and scholarships with Marquette being a Jesuit university. So that's where I ended up going. That was my first acceptance actually, but I was so like rebellious to get out of Racine and Milwaukee. I wanted to go far away, but I'm glad I didn't because Marquette was, I think, such an integral part of my journey, maintaining with like basketball, but also with home and staying close to family and just building a whole group of friends that I think bridge the gap between Racine and Milwaukee. We're so close. There's so many similarities and common ground. So I think it goes full circle for me.
Facts. So you choose Marquette. So was pre-law was like it was off top, like okay, I'm going pre-law, or was there any other avenues that you could have gone?
I mean, there could have been there definitely could have been different avenues. I think from the choices that were kind of like forced on us from a young age. Math and science were not my forte. I'm an English and history girl. So I was like, okay, if it's doctor, lawyer, engineer, lawyer makes sense for me. I was a peer mediator growing up. So like for me, I always like reading and I was like finding like solutions to things, like even amidst like all my brothers and boy cousins, I was always the one to like mend things and, you know, kind of somehow bring everybody to the same ground and put everybody on the same page. So I thought it made sense in that regard. But I was able to like tap into like sociology and Africana studies. So I double majored and minored into things. I'm a history buff
Okay.
and I love seeing why people operate the way they do. So it made sense for me to tap into those things. Because I think you need those aspects to navigate this space of working with people and working in the community amidst everything. So
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Yeah, and I was a sociology major with a psychology minor, with the intent of taking over my dad's social service agency. So I get the whole concept behind like just kind of trying to figure out how people tick and like what makes them work and like what makes them do certain things. So we're gonna pivot just a little bit. So you're Sikh, correct?
yes.
So there was a terrible, terrible tragedy. I think in 2012, the Sikh, the mass shooting at the Sikh temple here in Milwaukee or in Oak Creek.
Mhm.
Can you kind of talk about that experience and how that affected you personally and as well as your family?
Yeah. I would say that's probably the darkest moment in my life up to date. It it made me realize like the blessing that we have not being attached to certain things that we've normalized, like mass shootings in this country. Obviously, they shouldn't be normalized. We shouldn't kind of be immune to them. But I feel like that's become the norm. And I remember 2 weeks before the shooting happened at our church, the Sikh Temple of Wisconsin, in Oak Creek, that I was in Vegas for NBA summer league working, and I remember seeing the news about the Aurora shooting. And I was like, oh, wow, that's so unfortunate. I was able to tweet out, like, tweet out a couple things, post a couple things, and then go about my business. And then not knowing 2 weeks later, my whole life will be changed for the rest of my life. And what it made me understand is that we are given such a privilege of not having horrific things happen to us in our reality, because that's the kind of day and age we live in. Social media, um, clickbait, news, everything just moves on, right? It's no longer relevant. And what I realized for myself is that I had to be present more. I had to realize what mattered more in life, because the biggest mistake we make is thinking we have time. And just like that, I didn't. I saw my uncle, who was the president of the church, the night before. And I'm really big on saying, I love you, bye to everybody in my family, anybody in my life who holds that precedent. I'm really sentimental in that aspect. And I forgot to say bye to him. And we're driving home because I happen to be in town because I'm in Atlanta, and all my cousins, like, and my brother, everyone lives separately, but we all happen to be in town at that time for no apparent reason. We had nothing going on. I think that was just God kind of like bringing us all in one space. But um, I remember telling my dad, like, oh, I forgot to say bye to my uncle. He's like, it's all right. You'll see him tomorrow at church. And it just didn't sit right with me. And I'm very spiritual. Like, I'm very in tune. My dreams kind of like foretell things. I feel things before they happen. And something was just like weighing on me. And then when that did happen, it makes you realize like the things that we worry about on a day to day are not significant whatsoever. It also made me lean on my faith, even though I struggled with my faith at that time, because if this could happen in God's house, if this can happen to people who are praying, people who are, one of my friend's moms who was killed, she literally was killed in prayer position with her head to the ground. And for me, I grappled with that, because how can that happen if, this is what they followed, all the rules, they did what we're expected to do as human beings. But it made me realize to be present, never take those moments for granted, be intentional with every moment, try to live every day with the thought that tomorrow may not come. And it also made me tap into the fact that there are bigger things in play that we might not understand. Like, we're always looking for a reason. And that was a testament of me trying to eventually coming to trust God's will, even if you didn't understand his reason. And Sikhism is the fifth largest religion in the world. And until that shooting, a lot of people weren't even able to differentiate us with our like differentiate us from our Muslim brothers and sisters. And, also it made me realize the community that came out. The Muslim community really supported us in that time. All the surrounding communities, everybody from all faiths came together, but I just wish it didn't take for horrific moments for us to understand
Yep.
that we're way more connected than we give ourselves credit to. And it just made me navigate life in a spiritual lens and not a religious one, because we all believe the same. And I feel like if we could all see each other more, these things wouldn't happen. Obviously, gun laws, that's its own story, but um, just understanding the importance of community, safety, security, and even mental health, of having to recover from something like that.
So you mentioned mental health, and mental health isn't really talked as often as it should be. In the Black and brown communities. So, like, how did you cope with, or how are you coping with the PTSD of such a horrific, tragedy?
Um, I think it never goes away. I would never sit here and say it'll go away one day, because it doesn't, right?
Right.
Even if you lose someone in a non-traumatic way, it doesn't go away.
Yep.
You just kind of learn to live with it and build a life around that void. Um, but I I really, really like sing the praises of therapy. And I think especially brown and black communities need it the most
Yep.
because of all the things we endure on a daily, having to live in a society of not being told that we're not enough, knowing we're more than enough. But having to like shake the conditioning of the parameters that have been set, the limits that have been set, but just the trauma that's been passed on generations on. Our great grandparents, our grandparents, our parents, even our ancestors, none of them had the resources to unpack and navigate these things. They were taught to just keep it moving, brush it under the rug, shake it off. And we're not robots. We're human beings. We have needs, we have feelings, we need somewhere to put it. And we can't always put it on family or partners or friends, because at the end of the day, they're biased
Yep.
and they're very subjective. Their lens is only as so much as they can see. We need people in place who can allow us to unpack and hear us objectively, have the tools, have the resources, and give us a place to feel that we can lay it out somewhere else, everywhere, without any judgment, because we can't necessarily do that with people in our life, no matter how much we love them or care. And I also don't think it's a burden that we should have to put on the people who show up for us just on a day to day. But also understanding the importance of surrounding your tribe and your community and the people you surround yourself with, because that is what gets you through. Like, therapy is obviously necessary. On top of like therapy, I would say like journaling, meditation, prayer, breath work, getting sun and fresh air, just a walk, a hike, taking time for yourself, whatever that looks like. And like, obviously there's not like a how-to book, because you got to find what works for you.
Yep.
But just finding an outlet where you can kind of just breathe and be without having to perform and show up, outside of relationships, outside of commitments and obligations, like just existing and understanding that if you're not well, nothing around you can show that. Yeah, you can pour until you're empty and you can run yourself dry, but eventually it'll catch up to you. And I think we've all kind of been taught to just be on this hustle mentality. No days off pays off, right? That used to be a big like slogan of mine. And I still buy to it to some degree, but like with balance, So with balance and with understanding that you can only be as good to others as you are to yourself. And I think that's really what brought perspective to me, and something that I will sing praises to anybody who's willing to listen. That therapy has helped me immensely. And I'm constantly learning myself deeper, understanding how I've contributed to my own circumstances, and being accountable, because you can't control what other people do, what other things happen, but you can control you. You
Yep.
can better yourself every day. And I think that's a beautiful gift that's given to us that we take for granted. I'm trying to break cycles. My parents survived, but I'm trying to thrive. And that's where like, not the disconnect, but that's where we could bridge the gap, and also show our parents and my grandparents have deceased, but even our grandparents who are still living, of there is a better way. And that's fine if you live life a certain way up to this point, but I got you. Like, let me help you, or let me just accept you, know that you are loved, you're enough. Because a lot of times our parents are just navigating day in and day out, and it's like there's so much love that they needed that they weren't able to give, and we suffered, or they weren't able to show because they weren't taught it. So I think culturally we also deal with that as well, of just, emotion being weakness, and it's not. So yeah.
No, that's deep, and it's really no easy pivot, from such a heavy topic, given, that, the horrendous, tragedy. But I want to, tell you, your family, the Sikh community is, in my continued thoughts and prayers, as you all continue to battle through, that devastation. So,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
for sure, for sure, for sure. So like I said, it's really no easy pivot, but looking in the mirror behind you, um, I see it's like, the heart emoji. I'm seeing all those shoes, and it's just like making my eyes light up. So let's talk about like, where did that love for sneakers and, like, just that passion, like, come from? Like, is it a specific sneaker that, like, you got and you were just the feel of it, the brand, the new shoe smell of it? Like, where did the love for sneakers come from?
uh, I think, obviously growing up where we do, like, sneakers are a pivotal part of how we, express ourselves, show
Right.
up. I think it all started for me, 92. I was the first grade, and my first pair of shoes were the Jordan Black Cement threes. And back then, in my size, they were like 40 some dollars. But my parents gave me some of the money I got from my birthday party. All our family got together. They gave me money, and they gave me some of that to get that pair of shoes. And like, my parents really worked really hard to like get us, see us through school, put us through grad school, all these things. But, they were immigrants who left their dreams behind and came over and, sacrificed for us. So I didn't always have all this, right?
Right,
I
right,
didn't have it. You would get one pair of shoes a year, and when those wore out, you would get another pair. But these were like something that I really wanted. At that time, Black Cement threes they weren't what they are today,
right.
right? But the Jordans.
Mhm.
And from an early stage, I love black. Like, they go with everything. And I remember getting that pair, not knowing the significance of what that moment would mean, and putting them on and going to school. And I had glasses, so like I looked like a nerd. I had two pigtails. And if nothing else made sense, like whatever, my clothes were my clothes, nothing special. But when I put those shoes on, I went to school, and like you couldn't tell me anything. And it wasn't anybody like anyone else giving like recognition or doing it for anyone else. But I just felt like when I put those on, I felt like I had superpowers. Like I felt like I was walking on air. Like you couldn't tell me that, you know what I'm saying? Like that I wasn't that girl. And it literally was just the confidence and the excitement that a pair of sneakers could give you, which is crazy to me. And I think from there it was like solidified, because basketball was already ingrained in me.
Mhm.
And sneakers, that day I put those on, I was like, yeah, it solidified that like basketball and sneakers were like in competition for my first love. Like that's where it all started for me. So, and I mean, I was a big Bulls fan, big Jordan fan. Like my mom loved Jordan. Like this,
Yep.
little Punjabi lady loved Jordan. We would not miss a Bulls game ever. We would eat, we get dinner together and we would put on the game. Like that was something we did as a family. So it really felt full circle. And just being from the Midwest, we know what that meant
Yep.
for us growing up. So yeah, that was where it started.
Man, I love it. I love it. So so like what's your view on like the sneaker culture now?
Mm. Whew, okay.
We got time. We got
We
time.
got okay. So I think I'll start with the good.
Mhm.
I think it's beautiful to see how magnified and like celebrated and elevated sneaker culture is now. Growing up, there were those of us who were heavy on sneakers and those of us who weren't. It really wasn't necessarily a space for it being a topic of conversation.
Right.
It was just kind of like you put it on. There was no really we were living in the times of it being important, but there's no storytelling behind it. So it's beautiful to see like the storytelling, the significance behind silhouettes, behind certain sneakers, understanding like what each meant growing up. And like I think it was beautiful because we got to grow up seeing the likes of like Penny, Shaq, you know what I'm saying? Like Iverson, like obviously Jordan, but like the Barclays, like, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yep.
just seeing like all of, and I had all of those, like, and the story they told, even the swoops, like, as her being such a pinnacle in like the women's basketball space. But I think it's beautiful to see how the storytelling element is finally like being prioritized. I think
Mhm.
that's great. Just seeing the demand and like how sneaker culture is literally taken over the world. Like there's no way you can go and sneaker culture is not significant. You could literally walk into a room. And for me, the premise you make shoe contact before eye contact, because it's always interesting to see what people have on their feet. Cause it'll unknowingly tell a story of like, I wonder how they got into that or like what their influence was behind that. So I love that aspect. I think it's beautiful to see. It's obviously going to continue growing. Um, the downside, my first job was Champ Sports in Regency Mall in Racine.
Mhm.
I was in high school and I remember the feeling of like release dates and people would line up outside the gate before we would even pull it up. And you can come to the mall knowing that like you're gonna get the shoe you came for. You might have to stand in line, you might have to go to like Foot Locker, Finish Line, but you're gonna leave the
Gonna
mall with
get
the
it.
shoe.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was beautiful because for me, the hardest part now is this accessibility. And that sucks because between bots, resellers, people who are just copping, not for the love of the shoe, taken away from those who really appreciate it and grew up having access to it. That sucks. Um, and I get it, the demand's there. So things change in that regard. But I think that was a beautiful part of copping shoes was the experience itself. Being able to like pull up, see people in line, like, then go get a fit from the mall to match the shoes, whether it's like a rivalry, like basketball game going on, a football game, whatever it is, like being able to put that all together, it was an experience. Like I remember certain games, I till this day what I wore to
Oh
like,
yeah, for sure.
like Case and Horlick played. I remember what I wore to that. Um, we played Whitefish Bay. I remember what I wore to that. So it was just certain things that like they stick with you. And I feel like a lot of kids now are robbed of that. But now it's become so digital. You got to enter raffles, you got to try on sneakers. It's just kind of like it's become discouraging for a lot of people who grew up in this space, knowing what it meant to them, and kind of taken over by people who, lack for better words, could care less, and they're just trying to get their sales and money from it. So
You hit it
yeah.
right on the head because I definitely just took a L yesterday on the Travis Scott's.
Oh yeah, yeah,
But
and I know
you know,
it's crazy.
yeah, it's
But I don't
like
know if you heard about it. There was a spot in London who were like making people like golf and like hit
oh yeah,
like
like
40 yards from
107.
each.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
to
Like
get them. So that's
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not a golfer, but I like them. They,
Absolutely.
it's a dope kick, but yeah, I still wanted them, but yeah, I took a big fat L. But yeah, that's definitely one of the downsides. So how did your love for sneakers and culture play into the origination of what you're a part of now, a co-founder of Made for the W?
Um, I think they are the reasons why how I was able to contribute to the inception of it. Um, I had worked in the sports space since 2010. And I've worked as like with sports agencies, and all my clients were like NBA players and overseas players. But just growing up, having played basketball, having love for the game, having knowledge of the game, but also understanding that sneakers and basketball and sneakers they're connected to what makes the culture what it is. They go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other, but having an appreciation and love for it helps you create something seamlessly. And something that started off as a passion project took a life of its own because Melanie Carter, who's my fellow co-founder, and I were rooted in this. Like I was, and we both were working on the men's side. She was at Turner with NBA TV. And, I was working for CGL Sports for the agency on the men's side, and having been in that space, never seeing any women representation, but knowing we're passionate about sports, we know what it's about. And we really wanted to see a difference in that space. And instead of waiting for someone to like hear us or give us a seat at the table, we're like, all right, let's just make our own. But it literally started as something that we were just passionate about, having no idea that it was going to become what it did, because our inception was early 2018. And that was before a lot of entity. That was before Highlight Her, which is an entity of Bleacher Report,
Yeah.
before W Slam, before Foot Locker Women, like a lot of corporations with the money, the funding, they didn't pay attention. Like, there's no reason that we should have been able to come along in 2018 and create something that should have already been created. So for us, we knew we were passionate about it, but we were like, all right, let's just do something to like elevate the women on the court, off the court, just women in sports and sneaker culture who are making moves without complaining about no one doing it. Like, okay. So we did that, and that's when you were able to see like the trickle effect of an increase, attending in women sports, obviously. And our end was a WNBA, because we felt like that was like the least saturated, most neglected aspect, because they're in conjunction with the NBA. So there's no really real reason as to why it shouldn't be flourishing outside of just investment and elevation.
Yep.
So it made perfect sense. And I think that's why Made was able to do so well, because Mel and I are genuinely invested in this space. It wasn't performative. We didn't have to put on an act or act like we care. We really did. So whether it took off or not, we were doing something that was organic and true to us. And I think that's what has still been able to sustain it, like without us having the backing and the funding of large entities, because it was just us from ground up, from our homes, from our phones, from our computers. We just built it. So yeah.
So what is the overall mission of Made for the W?
Made for the W is essentially made for the modern sneakerhead, to elevate women in sports, sneakers and culture. Understanding that, shoes are universal language from on the court to just day to day, and they connect us with everybody in the entire world. That's like something that we can all understand and appreciate, but knowing how integral women are in that space, because women obviously are fly, but more than anything, they're influential. Like, whether you see it or not, whether even when it comes to NBA, NFL, men's sports, me having worked in that space, their mothers, their wives, their sisters, they're making big moves behind the scenes that you would never see. And a lot of these athletes, men, rely on the women in their life to, make these decisions, or they contribute their success to the women in their life.
Yep.
Even when it comes to like, oh, my mom took me to the store to get my first pair of sneakers, or my mom took me to basketball practice, like everything I feel is connected to a woman, but we're not necessarily given the space or the accolades to celebrate that. And that's cool if that's how it's done, but let's break the status quo and like give women their flowers and how powerful they really are, and make the difference whether they see it or not.
So being in that space, I know you get to mix and mingle and, meet some high level celebrities. So like, who are some of the influential athletes that help to like elevate and promote the brand today?
Wow, there's a lot. It's kind of surreal. You had to pinch yourself because you grow up hoping, praying, not even hoping, not even thinking that you'll be in these spaces with the likes of some of these people. But honestly, the WNBA athletes through and through, like there's so many to name, but like they have been such an integral part. I think Made has been able to prosper because we operate just on the basis of our personal relationships with the women in the league. We didn't have to go through any red tape, no agents, no managers, none of that. It was just direct access. And we were able to kind of just showcase their stories and just show their importance of what they mean. Obviously, the likes of Dawn Staley, Cheryl Swoops, Masora, Lisa Leslie, but even like, I mean, there's so many, but like even obviously Asia Wilson, like she's such a force. Like we've been able to work with the likes of Sabrina Ionescu. Like there's just so honestly, there's so much talent, and it's just never ending. Like of what they've done. But I think where we realized that we didn't want to be saturated to the space of like, yes, women's sports is great, and only focusing on women's support, because the only way you really connect the dots and bridge that gap is like showing how the men on the NBA side also prioritize women's sports. We can talk about it till we're blue in the face, but if there's not an equal investment or like appreciation, then what are we doing? Like, we're not just trying to play over here, we're trying to make it a gender neutral space. Because a big thing for Made is like we wanted to be equals. It's not a pity party. It's not like a woe is me. We're not trying to play catch up. We're just trying to take up equal amount of space so we can both eat and flourish. So it was really nice to see the likes of Kyrie. He's been an advocate. Obviously, you've seen what he has done on his own accord for women's sports,
Yep.
especially the WNBA during the bubble, and just what he does day in and day out. Like he is who he is on and off the court. He walks in his truth, and he's been an advocate and supporter of Made from the beginning. D Wade, the Marquette connection,
There we
but
go.
just the upstanding like person all around. And he's been locked in from the very beginning, from like wearing our merch to, doing a video for us of like we had a sneakerhead list of where we name off, like um all the most influential women in the WNBA when it comes to sneakerhead, um, that recognition. And him and Gabrielle Union put a whole video together of like, just basically announcing these things. Like, and it's really surreal of us just building something and seeing it kind of come into fruition, and people that you grew up watching and admiring, watching them admire something you built back is crazy. And obviously Kobe Bryant, it's crazy that he's gone, but he was a big advocate. Obviously, what you saw, what he was doing with the Mambasitas and his just investment in girls and women's sports, and being at the WNBA games and mentoring WNBA players and young college girls, as well as like the Mambasitas. Like he was really invested in it, and he really supported Made. And it's sad to see what we could have built and become with him had that horrific tragedy not happened. But yeah, those are some of the people I can name off top.
So you mentioned the late great Kobe, right? I heard you tell a story about uh obviously the relationship that you guys have formed with Kobe and the Mamba team. So what can you kind of go tell that story about, like you giving the merchandise and it made it to him but not quite in time?
Yeah. So um when the Mamacitas were just starting out, and he wasn't really letting like media or like platforms really end, like because he was still building them out. If you remember like how horrific their starting scores was, like the losses they were taking. He was really protective of what he was building, the girls' confidence, and just giving them a safe space. And I remember, because we were amongst the first people to literally get in and cover the Mambasitas, and two of our team members end up being part of the Mambasitas media team officially, so that was really cool to see. And I remember him saying that, like, originally he was like, do we want Made for the W to come in because they're too big? And I was like, us too big? How? Like, what do you mean? Like, I mean, it's crazy when you hear one of the most legendary and influential people in the history of basketball saying that we are too big, but we're like, no, please let us in. We got you. And so we formed a relationship throughout time, and he was just constantly like supporting us and commending us. And we were coming out with the merch line, and we wanted to see obviously out the people that held us in such close proximity and support the entire time. And we ended up reaching out to him right prior to his, again, a week prior to his passing. And we, a couple days before his passing, and we asked for like if he would be interested in getting the merch and like where we could send it and sizes. And he sent over his and Gigi's sizes, and just thanked us. And he said like he's gonna wear it and support and everything else. And he passed Sunday, and the merchandise arrived Monday. So it was really chilling, again, thinking you have time, thinking the opportunity is going to come, because I think the next month after that was All-Star in Chicago, and we thought we were going to link with him there and kind of just like solidify this bond, because I definitely could have seen him coming on as like a partner of some sorts in some capacity, or a silent investor, but he really just advocated us building something ground up, no fluff, no corporate spin. It's just us being passionate about something and watching it grow. He was an integral part of that, and it was just sad to see what could have been, because he was such an advocate for women's sports and women's basketball, and just to see what he would have been able to do with Gigi and the Mambasitas, and what that influential spin would have been for everybody who was paying attention, even on the men's side. It would have been really nice to see. So I feel like that kind of got cut short from us being able to experience.
No, definitely did. Definitely did. RIP to Kobe Bean Bryant. So we know that sports and business have a lot of similarities, right? So how have you been able to form like a dream team, so to speak, that helps with the success of Made?
Um, I think it comes back to like intention, alignment, and investment. You have to have people, just like sports, it takes teamwork to know what your role is, what your
Yep.
strengths are, and how they kind of play off each other for the team members you have. Mel and I have been able to build in a space where like my strengths are, different from hers, but yet you put our strengths together and our knowledge and our experiences together, and you create something cohesive. But beyond business, it's that we're really personally invested and passionate about this. Like it's something that moves us. It's not something we get to clock out of. It's not something that we get to just not care about. It's ingrained in us. So I think when you have something that moves you beyond um a dollar sign, or beyond just something to check off as like a obligation, but you feel like it's your purpose and you have a vision for it, I think that is where the teamwork comes in, but also where like you're on the same page with the person you're working with, because working with friends can be tricky,
Very.
because me and her were, we were best friends first, but because we were that, we were able to kind of see like, this is your strength, this is mine. We both feel just as passionately about it, and we were talking about this all the way in 2016, and it didn't come full circle until 2018. So just being able to build off each other's strengths, and just being also having those uncomfortable conversations,
Yep.
like, hey, I need this from you, or like, hey, like, you need to give me this space to rock over here. I think it's harder to do when it's just a business acumen and it's like a professional It's a professional background and setting. But when you do have that friendship and you have that understanding that it's not personal, but we're trying to push our brand to the next, to the next stage, you can be honest with each other and know that what that person's intentions really are at the end of the day. I know you care about Made. I know I care about Made. This is what we got to do for each other, and this is what I need from you, and vice versa. So it helps tremendously. But again, it just comes back, I think, at the core of it, the heart of the person that you're working with or people you're working with, like what moves them, um, what what they feel like is important in their life. Because how what people's like moral compasses, like their moral compass, their values, like those things all play a role in what your business becomes.
Yep.
Because you are a reflection of those that represent your company or your brand. So just being cognizant of that, because the relationships and the way you make people feel and the quality of the material and anything that you do, it comes back on you and people remember that. So yeah.
No, you hit it right on the head. Because I'm always kind of curious, like when as an entrepreneur, a lot of your earlier, employees are going to be friends and family.
Mhm.
So, and for myself, in my position, like, me and my older brother are business partners. So there's a dynamic there too. But I think, and you said, you said accountability, you said investment.
Accountability, alignment, and investment.
Yeah. So, like, ours is communication, accountability, and respect.
Mhm.
So, it all it it's pretty much synonyms at this point, but
Yep.
all of those things, play a huge part. And, as I'm speaking to more, entrepreneurs and business owners, just business people, period, a lot of those similarities are coming up and starting to, be more present. So that's why I was curious to know. And I knew that, y'all were cool ahead of time, but what kind of qualities, y'all both possess, and what do you look for in order for, the continued success of Made. So I appreciate
Absolutely. Because she's like, she handles content, she does a director and producer, but like I handle a lot of like the marketing, the business aspects, like, like player relations, the relationships we have. So it's like, but that's something we've both also learned with time. Like I've learned how to, what I'm saying, edit and kind of create content. She's learned how to like read certain like legal jargon and navigate contracts and know like certain dynamics. So it's also fun because you're not limiting yourself. You're also playing off each other to be like, teach me, put me on that, because you want to be fully functioning when the other person isn't around either. So,
facts, facts. No, you definitely got to wear a lot of hats. So,
mhm.
so with Made for the W, you're promoting, highlighting, a number of different, women. And so who are some of the women that that inspired you?
Um, it's crazy because growing up, I don't feel like we had a lot of women in the business realm, like on the sports and sneaker side, to really pave the way. And I think that's why we felt Made was so important, because you had people like you had the talent on the court, like obviously the Lisa Leslie, the Dawn Stallions, the Cheryl Swoops, the Tina Thompsons, like you saw that. But when it comes to like doing what we're doing and building what we built, I didn't really have a point of reference, right? You would look to the men in that regards. But when it came to like, oh, I think for me, the most important woman who taught me how to navigate in the business realm is my mother. She was a professor in India by the age of 17.
Wow.
She holds two master's degrees. She opened her own school at one point. She's been really rooted in the community, and with child upbringing, child education, child care. But also literally there's not a license out here she doesn't have. Like she has her broker license, she has a realtor license, she has her insurance license. Like she, what I'm saying, she got her like she was a tax preparer license. Like she has shown me that like wearing multiple hats will never hurt you. Have knowledge, learn everything. Like obviously certain things will move you and you'll be more invested and interested in certain aspects of your life. Um, but never limit yourself, because she didn't. She came into this country at 23, not knowing the language, not having her parents and the family she grew up with literally just meeting my dad for 30 minutes and getting married, and boom, this is her life, and she had to adapt. And I think that is what she's taught me, of how to adapt, how to pivot, how to constantly expand your knowledge, and obviously, like, never limit yourself. If you there's something out there, you can go get it. Like, and I see that because my mother wasn't a typical housewife. Yeah, she cooked, she cleaned, she always made sure my dad had a home cooked meal. We never went without. She took care of us, but she always pushed education and just expanding your knowledge in the business realm. And she has wore so many hats. For me, she taught me that there's nothing I can't do because my mom was a businesswoman. Like, I saw her being a boss, and even when she failed, she figured out another way. She never gave up. And I think that's important to see, instead of being taught of like, yeah, we got our domestic duties as women, cool. But just knowing that as a woman coming into a country that wasn't your native country and building a whole life that was kind of like expected of you, she was able to go out and live her dreams simultaneously and show me what it means to be a hero in my eyes, because that was my example. And there is nothing that I have faced that I know I can't call my mom. She she knows everything. If I need legal knowledge, she has that. This is even before, like, going to law school for me. Like, it was just kind of like, she is my rock. She's my go-to. I think everyone feels their mothers for the most part are like that. But it's because she is a hustler. She figures it out. She's smart. Like, she's book smart, but more than anything, she has common sense. She's street smart, and she'll always find a way. There's nothing that's off limits to her. And for me, it's pushed me to be like, I don't have to box myself in. I don't have to limit myself at all. So yeah, and I think that is what has helped make Made and everything else that I do. It's like, there's never too many hats you can wear, as long as you're doing it with the right intention and the passion. So
Man, shout out to moms. You can see the foundation that she's laid, it's coming out in you. So that's dope. And I appreciate you, sharing that,
yeah.
about your mom, going as in depth as you did. Sometimes, family issues can be a little dicey, but
Right.
but mom's obviously was a huge influence on you and continuing to be a huge influence. And she's a phenomenal woman just off of the brief description that I just heard. So, but okay, so how has partnerships like with companies like Nike, Lids, Jordan Brand, like how has that helped like amplify the credibility and the visibility of Made?
Oh, tremendously. And I say that because it's like they were all organic relationships. It's important to put yourself out there, and we've in the past pitched in many directions and things like that for certain campaigns and stuff like that. But when it came to like Nike, Jordan, and Lids, those were built off relationships and what they saw on our own accord. Something that we were building out with Made. We were organic about what we did. We stuck true to what worked for us, and really for the people who are following us to connect to the players and to these shoes and to the stories. So I think it was beautiful to be able to partner with them and maintain those relationships, and the wonderful people we've met who we have become friends with outside of business with the brands. But it was the best part about it is that we didn't have to grovel or show our worth. Yeah, like, there's you pitch, you do this, you do that, but they came to us with the interest of, we want to work with you guys off of something that we were just building. It wasn't necessarily like we were out here just seeing who bites.
Right,
So for me, it was really important to partner with people who and platforms that are really like-minded, and has to make sense. You can't just partner with like any Joe Schmo. Like, I'm not gonna go partner with like just this wine company. It doesn't make sense. Like,
right,
these are brands and platforms that have been embedded in our space since childhood for us, right? When you think of basketball, you think of sneakers, you think of Nike, you think of Jordan. And even when it comes to hats, you think of lids, you walking into a lids, you think of New Era, the little sticker on your hat. Like,
Yep.
so for me, it's just kind of like, what a blessing to be able to be seen by the brands that we grew up wearing, purchasing, supporting, for something that they can see organically that we built, and that they want to align with us. And they also trust that we'll deliver on whatever vision they need us to execute, whether it's campaigns, whether it's editorial elevations, whether it's being behind the camera, in front of the camera, or even, making something like our first, women's fitted hat in history, like with lids and New Era. Crazy.
That's wild.
Yeah, it
That's
is.
wild.
It was insane. It's like, it's surreal to be able to I can't even say live childhood dreams, but to be able to live dreams that I didn't even see as a child. Like, it's unreal. But yeah, no, it's helped tremendously, for the world to already see what they were able to see, but what we knew we were building and what we were doing it for.
Yep. Oh, I love it. I love it. All right, so we coming down the home stretch. So I got 5 rapid fire questions. All right,
Give it to me. I'm ready.
let's go. Let's go. All right. So obviously we see the sneakers. So I gotta come with a sneaker question first. Off top. All right.
Okay.
Favorite Jordan 1. I'm sorry. Favorite Jordan.
Oh,
Favorite
I was
Jordan.
like, dang,
Favorite
Jordan
Jordan.
what? Okay.
Favorite Jordan. Favorite Jordan. But
It would
but the
have to
the
be the Black Cement 3. I mean, I already told you guys a story, but beyond that, it's a classic
it is
silhouette. Like, it will never go out of style ever.
fair. All right. One thing left on your bucket list.
One thing left on my bucket list. Oh, so I want to basically uproot my life, and it's been calling me. A certain city has been calling me. I'm gonna see if that's what pans out. But I want to uproot my life and live overseas for like a year. Just kind of like experience life, not even recreate myself, but just see what it's like to be able to live in a whole new world and adapt. So that's something I want to do.
Okay. Any hints?
I think it's Europe. I don't know why London's calling me because I've never been.
Okay.
I'm gonna go for the first time in November, but something in my spirit is just telling me to go there and to live there. No clue why, but I feel like I'm gonna make it happen soon. So
Dope. Dope. Best of luck to you on that.
thank you.
Last song you played on your phone.
Oof. Oh, I've been in like my very like spiritual sim um bag. Cleo Soul.
Okay.
The song is called Promises. If you don't know Cleo Soul, definitely tap into her. I'm really a neo soul R&B girl. Obviously more so old, but older music. But yeah, Promises, Cleo Soul, tap in. Her catalog is crazy. You'll love it.
Okay. I'm making note of it right now. Yep.
Mhm.
Cleo Soul. Got it.
Mhm.
All right, next one. You got a dream vacation for 6. You plus 5. Who are your
Oh
guests, dead or alive?
God. Okay. Dream vacation. Okay. We'll just say we're in Bali. We'll
There we
throw that
go.
out
There we go.
there. Nipsey.
Yep.
Um, I wish I had a chance to pick his brain. I feel like he was a prophet of some sorts. He had a lot of knowledge, a lot of
Agreed.
game.
Agreed.
Wish we had him for longer. Kobe. Um, his ability between basketball and business, and just how his IQ, would love to like sit with him, and kind of just see like what moved him and just talk to him, because conversationally I heard he's great. Let's see. Huh. Russell Westbrook. I know, like, I just think he's brilliant. Like, from Honor the Gift, his brand he's built,
Yep.
the work he does in the community, like, he loves what he loves, and he walks in his truth unapologetically, from fashion, to, obviously, I think he's skilled on the court, the way he shuts out the outside noise and flies above it. And he just seems like goofy and cool. So it would be nice to have him around and kind of like shoot up with him.
The Brody.
Who else? Um, is tough. Who else would it
So
be?
you got Nip, you got Kobe, you got
Yeah.
Brody.
Russ, Brody, Iverson. I know this is all basketball, but for me, it's like so much of what I love is rooted in like basketball and sneakers. But like Iverson, I feel like his story, I would love to just like sit with him. And I know these like Russ and Iverson, these are things that could still happen. So I'm just speaking life to it too.
Oh, for sure.
But he made basketball culture what it is. So like just be able to give him his flowers and sit with him and kind of like see how his journey has shaped him to where he's at. And Jordan. I mean, I don't feel like this space and this conversation could even exist without him and what he's done for the game. And growing up, that being like one of my favorite players, of the reason why I love basketball the way I do. Yeah, I would love it. And I know clearly it would be a very like basketball saturated vacation. But like I just feel like there's so much to take from each of these minds and to be able to sit with, because I have been lucky enough to be able to communicate and sit with the women greats. We were able to gift them their own hats for the OG8 WNBA team. So that's been a reality for me. So yeah, those would be my picks.
Man, that's a fire vacation, man. I might have to, you gotta let me know when we booking that.
I got you.
But no, Sim, I appreciate you, pulling up, Leaf with the Legends podcast. Like I said, this is very, very special because you are my first female guest. And for you to have the platform, made for the W, um, just amplifying, you know, all the great things that are going on, in women's sports, women's culture, sneaker world. It's phenomenal. I have a baby girl. She's 4. She's starting to get into the whole sneakers, and looking at pops and my boxes in the back and whatnot. But yeah, it's just this is very special because I know how much the how much more visibility needs to be in the women in the women's game, mainly WNBA, but then like just media, sports, culture, the whole nine. So I appreciate you pulling up, taking some time out your day, and taking us on your journey. So
No, I appreciate you having me, Leaf. Like I think it's amazing what you're doing. Like shout out, to Leaf with the Legends. Like this is beautiful to put on for the city. And to be able to know how much excellence and greatness comes from where we're from doesn't get enough magnification. So salute to you. Thank you for having me as the first woman. That's huge. That's history. And thank you for creating a space for us to be safe, like seen and heard and elevated and celebrated. That means a lot. So you're being the difference, you're not just talking about it. So salute to you. And I know your baby girl has a great father figure to look up to. She is adorable. So
thank you,
keep
thank you, thank you. No, love is love. Hey, I can't end it any better. So there we have it. Simran Kaleka, thank you for joining. Leaf with the Legends podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Have a good one.
Be legendary or be lost.
Woo.